Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys. Oh my goodness, it's not turned on. It's not turned on. Hold on. We have power. There we go. Lovely stuff. Just turn around and look behind me, and the TG sign wasn't on. Those that are listening on audio must be thinking, what on earth is happening? Yes, need to make sure the power's on, otherwise the show won't be as good. That's how it works. Good morning to those joining us live in the chat box. Hope you're doing good. Hope you're doing well. Thank you as always for tuning in and making this a part of your morning routines. It is very much appreciated. I hope you've had a good start to your weeks. I know we've reached Wednesday, but getting past Tuesday, as I've always said, is one of the most important things to do in your week. If you can get past Tuesday, you're free and clear. You're happy, so indeed. Black Shine, good morning to you, to Matt G, to Rocky, to Jimbo, to Nate, good morning to Justin, Carl, Kim, Morgie, Johnny, Stephen, Maximius, Stevie, Carlton, Rich, Mr. E, PJ, Gooner, Jake, Red Star, Martin, Rob, Penny Ween, Louis, Emmanuel, James, Olawale, Dellen, that's the one. Sorry, Dellen. Good morning, everybody joining us. It means the absolute world that you have done. I really appreciate all of you tuning in, and hope that as I say before, that you are doing indeed good and well. Let's not waste any time. If you are indeed new to the show, we do this in two separate parts. Part one, I run you through all the latest news in the last 24 hours regarding Arsenal, and then in part two, we have a bit of a chat and talk through as many of your questions as we can. So without further ado, let's do that. Let's go to Arsenal's under-21s, recording a very good victory on penalties last night against Swindon. Arsenal are in the EFL Trophy. You may remember a lot of the controversy around this competition because they've allowed Premier League and I think even Championship youth sides to enter the competition, and Arsenal's under-21s went to Swindon, who are undefeated, I believe, in League Two right now. They drew 5-5. You may remember with Wrexham at the weekend. Well, Arsenal's under-21s went there and drew 2-2 and won on penalties. And you may be thinking, well, it's the group stage. Why is there penalties? Well, the way in which it works in the EFL Trophy is that if you end in a draw, you have the penalty shootout, and whoever wins the penalty shootout gets an extra point, believe it or not. So a very strange ruling system, but that is how it works. So Arsenal gaining an extra point after a 2-2 draw and technically winning the game on penalties. So really good to see the lads do fantastically well there. Mika Biereth, however, not so good news. He's gone on loan to Motherwell this season and has suffered another injury, which I spelled completely wrong. That's what happens when you make shows at stupid o'clock in the morning. But he suffered another injury and he's going to be out for 3 whole months. Really disappointing, really frustrating that this is happening and has happened to Mika Biereth, and that he's going to be missing for a big part of the season. It just seems like he can't ever stay fit for long enough. He went on loan to RKC Valvite last season and was also injured for a significant period of time. Arsenal signed him from Fulham and their youth side as well, and have sent him on loan ever since, after doing really well with the under-21s when he initially joined. And he's having more issues with injuries now. So a little bit like Tyrese John Jules, you may remember, just constantly going on loan, but constantly getting injured. And it seems Mika Biereth is sadly in the same kind of boat, which is a real frustration. Kido Taylor-Hart is in talks, according to Luca Bendoni of Damasio, with Estoril over a potential permanent exit from the club. Taylor-Hart was considered one of the really highly rated youngsters in the group, but has seen kind of minutes diminish, and he's been overtaken in the pecking order by the likes of Mario Koja-Dubry, Ethan Nwaneri. They've all been getting more minutes in the end than Taylor-Hart. And we've got a lot of really talented under-18 youngsters coming through, like Camara, etc., that, again, are going to make it very difficult for Taylor-Hart to get regular game time. He did spend time on loan last season with Derby's under-21s, but again, couldn't really get too many minutes. He went with Billy Vigar out to Derby, and it didn't really work for him. So it seems that a permanent exit is going to be happening. It's going to be going forwards and improved for his game time, which is important for him because he is a talented player sadly, it's just not worked out for him at Arsenal. West Ham United have completed the signing of Konstantinos Mavropanos. Sophie, I hope that my pronunciation is okay. It's definitely not. But Mavropanos is now going to be in the Premier League once again. And Arsenal have gained around £2 million for the signing, which is obviously a benefit because we had a sell-on clause involved in that deal than when we sold him to Stuttgart for about £3 million. It was not very much at all, but we did put a 20%, I think it was 10% sell-on clause in that deal, and he's moved for around £20 million. So Arsenal have got about £2 million from that deal. So extra little bit of money. Fingers crossed that we continue to make the money in the window because we do need to sell some players. And speaking of which, according to Alex Crook of TalkSport, Brighton have switched their focus to Albert Sambi Lokonga as a potential alternative. They've been trying to sign Lille midfielder Baleba, and it's not really been happening for them. And then because of that, they have decided to switch tactics, and now it looks like they're much more likely to is it Baleba? I think it is. Yes, Carlos Baleba. They've been trying to agree a deal. They've bid about 25 million euros plus add-ons. There's still no agreement between the clubs, but Sambi Lokonga is just an alternative option at the moment for them. I did a little bit of digging around this deal yesterday, and I've been told to basically watch out for clubs in France between now and the end of the window. So the deal with Burnley looks like it's not really working, and it's not going to happen in that sense. That's kind of fallen away. But I've been told to keep an eye on French teams with Lokonga, particularly those. Maybe Monaco could be one to look to because obviously Youssouf Fofana could be leaving the club this summer, and they may look to sign Sambi Lokonga if indeed that does go through. But I need to do some more digging around this story to see where Lokonga may turn up. So let's wait and see. And speaking of Monaco, they continue discussions with Arsenal over the exit of Balogun. They are leading the race for Balogun at this stage, despite talk of, Chelsea, Tottenham, Inter Milan we've heard about as well, of course, whose interest has since disappeared. Monaco are said to be leading that race. There are positive discussions that have taken place with Arsenal, and that the clubs are trying to come to an agreement over a potential price tag. I think if Arsenal can get as close to £40 million from Monaco as feasibly possible, it's a really good deal for us. I've not been able to have any kind of debate or discussion which has made me believe otherwise, but certainly around what Monaco would pay for a striker, what clubs on the continent would pay for a striker, and you think about how much El Yawahi and Lois Openda have moved for this summer, he's in that similar bracket, and so therefore that price of 35 to 40 million pounds is representative of the strikers of his profile that are moving right now. And so if Arsenal can get that bid in for a player that'll have just a year left on his deal next season, I think it would be good. People might say it's not enough, but sadly, that's the market. That is the situation that we find ourselves in with Balogun. So it's a case of sell now for a price tag that not everyone is going to be happy with, or keep him not get many minutes at all this season, and be worth even less next year. So it's very, very difficult to kind of get more than that figure, to be honest. West Ham have had a second bid rejected from Mohamed Kudus. They want more money than the money that they kind of agreed with Brighton earlier on in the window, which then didn't end up happening as a move. I do find it interesting that personal terms were initially reported as not being necessarily a problem, but we've started to see that there may be more issues, it seems, with the personal terms regarding Kudus' move to West Ham than there were initially. I still feel as though, and I haven't got this confirmed, but just a personal feeling around this deal is that it's like he's waiting for a bigger club to come along, and we'll have to wait and see if indeed Arsenal do kind of come in for the player, because we'll end the news section and probably spark off the debate of part two with the question of who are Arsenal going to sign and when are they going to sign those players. From my perspective, Arsenal are probably not going to sign anybody until they start moving those players on. Lokonga, Tavares, Cedric, Pepe, who there have been rumours could return. I've not heard that personally. He's just back at the club. He's obviously back at the club because he's an Arsenal player. So that, that makes sense that he's back at Arsenal at the moment, but it doesn't mean that he's going to be staying with us. Certainly haven't heard anything regarding a meeting between Arsenal, Arteta and Pepe. That's certainly not something I've heard at all. But the question is who will sign. I think we need to look at bringing in that defender to replace Timber, and I'd love to see a forward like Kudus moving to Arsenal. I'd love that to happen, but we're going to have to keep on continuing to wait and see if that does happen. But fingers crossed, Arsenal can get their deals done. There's only one deal that you need to do this summer, and that is, of course, to set yourself up with an exclusive deal with NordVPN, who can, of course, bring you all the safety and security you need. Maybe you yourself are heading back to school this summer and into the new year, or you've got young ones that are going to be going back to school. Keeping their devices safe and secure online is something that NordVPN are really pushing this summer, and they are the VPN service to use for that. You can get a significant discount off a 1 or 2 year plan. And if you go with a 2-year plan, by going to nordvpn.com/Gooner, you can actually get yourself 4 bonus months on top of that as well, just by using our exclusive deal. So that's nordvpn.com/Gooner. Make sure you do that. You can get yourself the ad blockers, the malware protection, all the things that you need in 2023, really, to stay safe online. So don't miss out. 30-day money-back guarantee as well. If you're not happy with the service, you can get your money back. Who can say any fairer than that? Right then, let's go to part 2 and your questions right after this. Oh, Killy-dokily. I was watching Simpsons last night. So Ned Flanders stuck in my mind, clearly, is what's going on. Right then, let's jump into the chat. Let's see what questions we've got. And I'll hope to try and tackle as many of them as I can in the time that is remaining. Oh, good to see Sophie in the chat box. Raybeam says, I'd rather Monaco than Chelsea buying him any day of the week. Louis says, Tom, isn't not being able to appeal a double yellow a huge loophole? Refs could send a player off before a key game in the Prem for 2 stupid yellows and the club can't appeal it. Yeah, it is. It's silly, but it's the rule. I don't know if McAllister, I think I saw someone leave a comment actually. McAllister's red cards has been overturned. Another mistake by VAR being confirmed. Once again, that's apologies being made to Wolves. That's penalties not being given against Man United. That's red cards being overturned. We're in week 2, people. Week 2. You know, that's one more than week 1. Oh, that's the wrong finger to put down. But that's one more week than just 1 week. 2 weeks is all we've got in this season, and we've seen so many errors. These officials aren't good enough. It's as plain and simple as that. They're just not good enough. They're making too many mistakes, and Arsenal and other clubs should be very, very worried about the legitimacy of this competition, because if you can't officiate it correctly, what's the point? You know, it's a really important figure on the field, and they're not making the right choices. It's absolutely ridiculous. Let's go to Jay. Says, hi Tom, I finally managed to get tickets to a game, Fulham. Will you be around anywhere? I hope to say hello in person for once after listening for your morning for 3 years. PS, my wife hates it. Jay, I'm really sorry, but actually I'm not going to be there. I'm away this weekend for my anniversary weekend, so I've actually got the weekend off. I'll be tuning in to watch the game as best I feasibly can, probably using the Football.London live blog to keep up to date with everything that's going on with the game. But yeah, Jay, you sadly picked the one game, definitely the one home game that I'm not going to be at. So sorry, Jay. I'm really, I can only apologize for that, but it is my anniversary this weekend, and so we're going away, and I'm having some time off. I say I'm having some time off, though. Don't worry. 8 a.m.s. They're still going to be around. They're still coming. We're obsessed. We're addicted. The 8 a.m.s are still going to be there from the hotel room. P Sharp says, Tom, with Tomiyasu suspended, can you see Tierney back in the squad given it's seen he might exit the club? None of the other likely exiteers, Balogun, Tavares, Sambi, are near the match day squads. I think he may be, potentially. I guess Tierney could come back into the squad with Timber out, with Tomiyasu suspended. I guess that it would make sense that Tierney would come back in if indeed he hasn't already secured a move away from the club at this stage. Mike, it's my birthday today, Tom. Up the Arsenal. Have a great day. Mike, happy birthday, my friends. I hope that people are wishing you a very happy birthday indeed. I can see that they are already in the chat box. Happy birthday, mate. I hope you have a great and fantastic day. Maggie says, do you think they'll be more emotionally invested in men's national team if and when Rice becomes England captain? Me personally, You know, my following of the England national team is almost exclusively the tournaments, and I don't count the Nations League in that. I really can't get up for friendlies. I can't get up for Nations League. I really struggle with international football because my life so heavily revolves around Arsenal. I suppose maybe with more England players in the Arsenal setup, with Rice and Saka and Ben White, Smith Rowe, of course, hopefully can find a place back again should he get more minutes in the Arsenal team. I think that, you know, there is lots to be said regarding the potential for there to be more interest in the English national team. But yeah. VM says, guess what? Qatar now owns Man United. When are we going to stop this? I'm not sure that we can stop this, VM. You know, they come through with all the regulations. They pass all the checks. They own Man United. It doesn't mean that Man United are going to be any better, mind. You know, look at how much Chelsea have spent. Look how much Man United have spent, you know, and it doesn't necessarily have correlated to any kind of success. It's less about the owners. It's more about who are the people spending the money and what are they spending it on. That's the most important thing. As she says, what's happening with Smith Rowe? I also feel sorry for Trossard for less game time. Hope he's not having second thoughts. Let the season progress. Let the games come thick and fast. Let us get the FA Cups, the League Cups, the Champions League. Let all of these games flow into the season, and then we can start having some discussions about people that aren't getting enough minutes, because until the games start coming thick and fast, those players aren't going to get as many minutes. They both came on against Nottingham Forest. The game state against Palace with the red card meant that you couldn't bring them on, but I'm sure they're going to be getting more minutes very soon indeed. Lynn says, have you seen the interview with HW with Lineker? He was glossing over the errors that are being made. It's a bit of a joke. Howard Webb doing an interview with Gary Lineker. I've not actually seen it, no, and I'm not surprised that there was, you know, any kind of glossing. There was loads of glossing over of facts. You know, they're very protective, they're very guarded, and sadly, they're not that great at holding up account for themselves. But all we seem to get is apologies. I mean, when are we going to start having investigations into the PGMOL? And I'm not talking about investigations regarding alleged corruption. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about investigations into whether or not these people are good enough to do their jobs. That's what I want to see. Is opportunity being given enough to other referees? Should we be looking at bringing in referees from outside of the UK that are better to bring them in and improve the standard of officiating? Are we giving, you know, enough opportunities to officials? Arguably not is the answer. Lucas says, is Edu under pressure to sell now that our squad is considered bloated? We came in second, but we can't seem to offload our squad players who had games like Holding and Sambi, but Liverpool can, like Ibe. I mean, that was a long time ago, to be fair, Lucas, with Jordan Ibe, a long time ago. I think when it comes to Arsenal and our bloated squad, it's a sad state of affairs for the players to be moved on. I don't think Edu's under pressure himself. I think there's a pressure that exists because he needs to move those players on. But I don't think that I'm going to be questioning Edu's credentials if we can't move on players like Pepe or Lokonga or Tavares, or, you know, for you know, the price tags that people are expecting. But it's a state of the market, sadly. There's a big market for the hugely expensive players, but the market for the less so expensive players doesn't exist anymore in the same way that it used to. So we hopefully will see some movement in the next week or two, and hopefully can move the players on swiftly and effectively, and that comes for both time and money as well. KSS says, is it time for an independent oversight over refereeing decisions and or new referee associations with new people and new ideas of accountability and standards? Yes, arguably, I think absolutely that should be the case. Fuad says, how do you see the pathway for Nwaneri and Lewis Skelly getting integrated into the first team? I saw Barca play a 16-year-old over the weekend. It's much easier for Barcelona to play a 16-year-old than it is for Arsenal. La Liga gives you the opportunity to play, you know, if you're Barcelona, a team, you know, if you're going up against the teams at the bottom end of La Liga, you're going to be able to get the opportunity to do that. When Barcelona play against Granada or Almeria, you know, with respect to those teams, they are going to be able to throw a 16-year-old kid on, compared to if Arsenal play against Sheffield United or against Burnley. We can't do that because Burnley and Sheffield United are significantly better than Granada. You know, so we need to have a competitive side in every single Premier League game. That's not the case anymore for La Liga. It used to be a lot better. You know, I used to defend La Liga a hell of a lot, but it has changed and things have changed. So that's why they can. I hope that we find ourselves in a position whereby we can give these players more opportunities. But I think it's going to come to cup competitions, Carabao Cups, things like that, but only if the draw is also kind to us as well. Olawale says, I think 35 for 40 for Balogun is fair. We made it known to people that we want to sell, so they're not going to pay over the odds. If we had been using him in pre-season, it would have been different. I don't think even if we used him in pre-season more, it would have been that different, to be fair. I just think you look at the deals for El Yawahi and Lois Openda, and that gives you a really good idea of why Balogun's going to go for a figure in the ballpark between those two players. And Openda is a better player than Balogun for me, in my opinion. It's more established. And El Yawahi as well is on a very similar level and went, I think, for around 33 million euros. So if Arsenal end up getting more than Montpellier got for El Yawahi, then you're probably going to be quite happy with that. Only if you move to another Premier League team would you be a little bit disappointed. If you move to a Fulham, a West Ham, or a Chelsea, you'd want to get more. But it seems that the club that's in for him the most is Monaco, and you're not going to get the same level of money as you will from another Premier League side. And that does absolutely come into the thinking when it comes to negotiations. Let's go to Filosu. Says Partey will not be at right back against United and Spurs. Arteta is not daft. I mean, don't rule it out entirely, especially the Spurs home game. Don't rule out. We would dominate possession in that fixture. The Man United game, I'd be more surprised to see Partey at right back. But the idea of this system with Partey playing at right back is to help with the dominance and to prevent counterattacks. Spurs are one of the most counterattacking sides in the league. So I wouldn't be surprised if Partey still played right back against Spurs, because the whole idea of the system actually is to nullify a threat that Spurs have in abundance. So, yeah, don't be surprised by that. Phil says, what's your assessment of Tomiyasu? Do you see him being part of the squad in the foreseeable future? I think he's one of the most versatile defenders in the league. I agree with the second part. I think that he is one of the most versatile players in the league. I think he is an asset to this side and can really do a good job when he needs to come into the team. I didn't think he was amazing against Palace. He was probably our weakest of the back four. But I wouldn't highlight him as having a bad display. I know that Jordan Ayew had a couple of really good runs at him and beat him a couple of times. But if the expectation is a player is not to be beaten once, it's obviously you're holding things to very high standards. Even Saliba has been beaten, in runs and different movements, and himself makes mistakes that he had to account for with a brilliant tackle against Ayew against Palace. So whilst I didn't think he was probably the weakest of our defenders in that game, I think that he should be kept. The question mark about Tomiyasu is fitness. Can he stay fit? Is he going to be reliable enough? If the answer is no, then I could think about selling him. But if he can stay fit for the foreseeable future, then he's definitely going to be an asset to this team. Jimbo says, when will the TGT caps be available? My baldness needs coverage from the sun. I'm sorry, Jimbo. It's going to be a little while before the caps come back. There's a lot of busy stuff going on with the company that we work with at the moment. So apologies for that, but hopefully soon. Darren says, Tom, are there referees that were former elite players in the Premier League, or are the mistakes due to a lack of rule knowledge or a lack of feel for the game? I don't think there's any former players that are referees. I might be wrong, but I can't think of any off the top of my head. Not professional, at least, like at the top level. I think referees, obviously, the way in which the process works with refereeing is that you start learning refereeing from a very young age. And it takes a very long time before you get to the level of a Premier League standard official. That's why referees are usually in their 30s and 40s and even 50s at times when they're involved in the game, because it's years and years and years and years of officiating that gets to that stage. Mike Dean retired at 53, 54, I think. So that's how old referees are around the scene, but they're usually in their 30s by the time they get to that top level. Is it that we should be giving more younger referees opportunities, and should we kind of create academies, if you like, better academy systems, better grassroots refereeing institutions? Maybe that would improve it. Knowledge says, any news or progress on Fresneda? Nothing. Very quiet on that Fresneda front at the moment. Lynn says, Tom, do you feel with Partey playing at right back, Saka and Odegaard haven't looked as good? No, I think Odegaard and Saka have still looked very good. I didn't think Saka was amazing against Palace, but I thought Saka was brilliant against Nottingham Forest. I thought Odegaard has had two good games. So no, I don't think that Partey is affecting those two at all, because White does come over to the right-hand side a fair amount. So it's not like you're losing White's presence on that right hand side significantly. So no, I don't think it's having a negative impact on Saka or Ødegaard at all. Van Jones says, are there any reliable reports about Arsenal looking at Evan Ferguson? Brighton want a ridiculous fee, yet they don't start him over Welbeck. Yeah. I'm a little bit cautious about Evan Ferguson. I'm not going to lie. Yeah, I'm not jumping on the Evan Ferguson train at this point in time. I think that he's a player with lots of potential, but I don't think he's a player that I would dump, 80 odd million quid onto yet. I think I would look at more established forwards over Evan Ferguson. But who knows? We'll have to see if this season he does intend to kind of establish himself in that Brighton side as the season progresses, and then we'll see what happens with him. Before we wrap up today's show, I want to let you know that today there will be another show at 5:30 p.m. UK time. I'm going to be joined by Charles Watts, formerly of Goal, of course. And you know Charles, I don't need to describe him, but he's got an excellent book coming out very soon. We're going to talk about the book. We're going to talk about the season so far, transfers. We're going to talk about a lot of stuff. So 5:30 p.m. UK time, I'm going to be joined by Charles to have a good chat. So do make sure that you tune in and give that a listen. So set your alarm, set your clocks for that. It's going to be a good conversation, I'm sure. But yeah, that's going to be very exciting indeed. Tomorrow I'll be back as usual at 8 a.m. And then hopefully it should be on with Sophie over on the Highbury Squad as well. So yeah, lots of shows to come. I was on with Lee Judges and Dan Potts last night on LJTV, filling in for Graham and Harry, who weren't around for the same old Arsenal. Same old Gooners, show. So yeah, do make sure that you check in and give that a watch if you haven't done so already. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for dropping a like. If you haven't done so already, please do. And subscribe. I'm going to be live, as always, on the Arsenal Way at 10 o'clock in just over an hour and a half time. And yeah, we're very close to 100,000 subs over there, believe it or not. We've more than doubled the subs here. It's an amazing achievement what we've done at the Arsenal Way, and there's a lot of people that are responsible for that. So thank you to everyone that tunes into those shows as well. But thank you for listening. I'll see you again very, very soon. Have a fantastic Wednesday. Get over the hump. And as always, up the Arsenal.